Hello and welcome. Two-story building collapses in Lagos Island, killing 3 people and 9 others rescued as another structure partially caves in the Kotun area of the city. Nigerian Army honors outstanding officers and soldiers during a ceremony in Katsina to mark 157 years of its existence. Chief of Army Staff restates commitments to containing threats to the nation's security. Nigerian lady advertised for sale on Facebook by her Syrian employer returns home as 28 other citizens stranded in Lebanon arrive Nigeria. And 5 people killed after attackers stormed a church in South Africa. Police rescue men, women and children from what they describe as a hostage situation. Plus, we have business and sports.
On sports news tonight, Kamaru Usman puts his welterweight title on the line as he faces American mixed martial artist Jorge Masvidal at the UFC 251.
And on business news tonight, federal government allays fears of increase in airfares due to the impact of COVID-19 pandemic.
We start off in Lagos, where rescue operations have been concluded at the site of the collapse of a 2-story building located on Freeman Street in Lagos Island in the early hours of today. 3 people lost their lives while at least 9 people were rescued from the rubble. According to the general manager of the Lagos State Emergency Management Agency, the building failed the integrity test conducted to determine the quality of the structure.
Anxious residents and sympathizers gather along Freeman Street to catch a glimpse of a collapsed building. With all trapped occupants now rescued, an earth-moving machine is deployed to level what's left of the structure. The sad incident occurred in the wee hours of today, while the occupants were asleep.
I live on this street.
Oloriyomi Anna was one of those who alerted the emergency agencies.
At 2:30 a.m., I just heard a sound dual, and I peeped on the window. After peeping on the window, I saw a smoke, and I came outside. I saw a building collapse, and I called for help.
When we received the alert, we were told, based on the alert, that police and fire service have been informed. So we had to call other stakeholders, especially LASEMA, road safety, because of the road accessibility and other things. They also allege that part of the building is being used as a school. So the school management are here to retrieve some of the valuables there. So that's what we are doing and being careful in getting some of the properties out.
Meanwhile, the Director General of the Lagos State Emergency Management Agency gives an account of the rescue efforts, casualty figures, and what might have led to this tragedy.
We are able to rescue 9 people alive, and we sympathize of the people that lost their loved ones in there. We recovered 3 bodies. The 3 bodies that were rescued has been deposited in the mortuary. It is pertinent to note that we have served these people for over 3 months ago. We informed the occupant to leave the place when we discovered that the material testing failed.
The excavation also allows residents to search the rubble for valuable household items. This latest incident comes amidst reports of distressed structures scattered across Lagos Island, which raises questions about how quickly relevant agencies take action to bring down such buildings confirmed to have failed integrity tests.
Meanwhile, another building has partially collapsed at Number in the Kotun area of Lagos. It's a 1-story building, was set to house 9 shops, 15 rooms. Fortunately, there were no lives or injuries recorded. According to the LASEMA Director General, the building was found to be conspicuously distressed as many cracks were observed on the walls, pillars and decking. He said all the occupants have been evacuated while the building has been cordoned off. And as the continent celebrates this year's Anti-Corruption Day, President Muhammadu Buhari has asked African leaders to ensure the immediate actualization of the common African position on assets recovery. In a letter to his South African counterpart, Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa, who is the chairman of the African Union, President Buhari asked for a recommitment to the anti-corruption war by leaders on the continent. The president says, in this effort, the emphasis has been on the continent's collective determination to forge resilient partnerships among our national governments, civil society organizations, and other interest groups such as women, youth, and the physically challenged to ensure improved socioeconomic, political, and security development, and ultimately the improvement of our continent. The president laments that the massive corruption being perpetrated created a huge governance deficit that has in turn created negative consequences that have worsened the socio-economic and political situation on the continent. In the meantime, the presidency has defended the suspension of Mr. Ibrahim Magu as acting chairman of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, and who is being investigated for alleged corruption. In a statement, presidential spokesman Mr. Garba Shehu explains that Mr. Magu's suspension shows that the fight against corruption is real. According to him, Mr. Magu is not immune to such a probe because there are no sacred cows in the current administration's fight against corruption, insisting that the EFCC does not revolve around the personality of an individual. The suspended acting EFCC chairman is being investigated by a presidential panel over the activities of the agency under him. The Attorney General of the Federation had accused him of diverting recovered funds, among other allegations. And now to security matters. The Nigerian Army's Operation Whirlstroke has continued its clearance operation in Taraba State, neutralizing armed bandits who fled to Arufu from neighboring Benue State. The coordinator, Defense Media Operations, Major General John Enenche, explains in a statement that troops attacked the bandits following intelligence reports on their infiltration in Chambe community, local government area of Benue State, where 2 villagers were killed. The men of Operation Whirlstroke tracked the assailants to a makeshift camp at the outskirts of Arufu. On sighting the troops, the bandits opened fire but were overwhelmed by higher intensity firepower, which killed 2 of them while others fled with gunshot wounds. Well, staying with security, the Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Tukur Buratai, has reiterated the Army's commitment to winning the war against insurgency in the northeast. The Army Chief made the remarks in Katsina State during the grand finale of the Nigerian Army's 157 years anniversary, held at the newly established Special Army Super Camp 4 in Katsina State. The event also provided an opportunity for the Army authorities to honor some of the officers and soldiers for their courage and outstanding performance on the front line, as the federal government gave assurances of adequate support.
It's the grand finale of the 2020 Nigerian Army Day to mark 157 years of its existence, an annual event to celebrate the contributions of the Nigerian Army towards building the peace and security of the country. Despite evident challenges, the Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Tukur Buratai, believes that progress has been made as he reiterates the Army's commitment to win the war against insurgency.
Today's honors and award ceremony occupy a special pride of place in the life of an institution such as the Nigerian Army. It is an occasion where personnel who have distinguished themselves in their field of endeavor are singled out for recognition. Undoubtedly, this year's award ceremony is indeed a very unique one in view of the emerging security environment in the country. However, it is no doubt an uphill task to perform exceptionally under the prevailing conditions. To this end, I wish to assure you all that the Nigerian Army will continue to recognize the sacrifices of such individuals.
The ceremony also features the Nigerian Army honors and awards given to deserving soldiers, as well as the unveiling of the Compendium of Nigerian Army Transformation, highlighting the achievements recorded in the last 5 years. For the federal government, more support will be provided in dealing with security challenges in the country.
All our obligations shall be faithfully discharged to you. We will continue to demonstrate the political will and determination towards ensuring that insurgency and criminality are totally eradicated in our dear country.
The Nigerian Army Day provides another opportunity to celebrate those who hold positions in dangerous territories, while the troops ensure that they deliver on their constitutional roles.
And now to what might be described as to the fallout of insurgency in the northeast. The Church of the Brethren Mission in Nigeria, also known as EYN, say it is one of the worst hit by the violence, with thousands of its members killed and many others displaced in the last 11 years. The national president of the church, Mr. Joel Billy, is asking that more military personnel be deployed around Goza Hills in Adamawa and Benue to guarantee the safe return of those displaced during this period.
I think it was June this year.
Noah Abdulrazak, the pastor of EYN Church, is still counting his losses after he said insurgents attacked his village in Adamawa State in June.
When they came, they attacked my younger brother's home. And then from my younger brother's home, they went all around the houses, all the houses in the village.
In January this year, the Adamawa State Chairman of the Christian Association of Nigeria, Reverend Lawan Andimi, was said to have been beheaded by Boko Haram. Seeking some sort of assurance for their safety, the church organized a press conference to share their sentiments.
The fact on ground is
EYN says that thousands of its members and pastors have been killed within 11-year period.
EYN had 4 district church councils, DCC, prior to the insurgency in Goza local government area of Borno State, to which none is existing today. There are over 18,000 of members who are still taking refuge in Minawao, Cameroon.
The Christian Association of Nigeria believes that the Northeast Development Commission was created to cushion losses suffered as a result of insurgency, and wonders why it seems the commission is not giving them attention.
I can't see, and I don't know what the Northeast Development Commission is actually doing in terms of rebuilding the Northeast. The 7 bridges that have been destroyed by Boko Haram between Michika and Madagali, none of them has been rebuilt yet. What are they doing? The schools that have been destroyed, the churches that have been destroyed, the houses that have been destroyed, not a single one has been rebuilt by the Northeast Development Commission.
The clerics are also asking that as a short-term solution, security presence should be increased in the rural parts of the Northeast to allow indigents return home.
In part 2, after the break, more Nigerians continue to make their way back to the country from various parts of the world as flight operations resume in more airports in the country. Please stay with us. Welcome back. If you just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 live on Channels Television Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. 2-story building collapses in Lagos Island, killing 3 people with 9 others rescued as another structure partially caves in the cultural area of the city. Nigerian Army honors outstanding officers and soldiers during a ceremony in Katsina State to mark 157 years of its existence. Chief of Army Staff restates commitment to containing threats to the nation's security. Nigerian lady advertised for sale on Facebook by her Syrian employer returns home as 28 other citizens stranded in Lebanon arrive the country. And 5 people killed after attackers stormed a church in South Africa. Police rescue men, women, children from what they describe as a hostage situation. Whilst we have business and sports. Our website, channelstv.com, has more information on our top stories and others. Subscribe and watch Channels Television's live stream on YouTube and other social media platforms using your mobile device browser, or download the Channels TV app for Android, iOS devices from their respective stores. You can also watch us via your smart TV platforms on Apple TV, Android TV, Fire and Roku TV. Now, Governor Samuel Ortom has appealed to President Muhammadu Buhari to declare armed herdsmen in Benue State as terrorists. His call follows repeated attacks on different communities of the state in the last couple of months, the latest in Sechembe community in Logo local government area. Governor Ortom condemns the invasion and killings and describes the situation as unacceptable. He says Benue State has a law which prohibits open grazing of livestock and stresses that only a terrorist group would deliberately choose to violate the legislation, as the herdsmen have done since the law was enacted in 2017. He states that declaring the armed herders operating in Benue State as terrorists will end the wave of impunity and guarantee the rule of law. 29 Nigerians who were initially stranded in Lebanon have arrived the country. Among them are Peace Busari, who was put on sale on Facebook by her Syrian employer in Lebanon, and Temitope Aruolo, who was wrongly accused of murder by her Lebanese employer. They were rescued by the Nigerian mission in Lebanon, assisted by the Nigerians in Diaspora Commission, NIDCOM. The evacuees landed in Abuja this afternoon and were received by representatives from the Nigeria Diaspora Commission, the chairperson of the House of Representatives Committee on Diaspora, and the special assistant to the Oyo State government. In an exclusive interview with Channels Television, Peace Busari confirmed that she was indeed put up for sale by her employer, who has since been arrested by the Lebanese government.
My boss wants to sell me $1,000 because he can't avoid to pay my money again. That's why he wants to sell me. But I'm from Delta State, but I'm living at Ibadan. So I'm citizen of Ibadan. So my father died last month. But now I'm back to Nigeria now. So government to help me, please. Nigeria government, please help me because I need your support and I need your help. My praise go to Abike Dabiri, Madam Abike Dabiri. I thank God to Abike Dabiri that he sponsored me come to this Nigeria. Bro, I really thank God. Please, Nigeria people, please help us. Please, we need your help. See, many of us, we are very suffer. We are very suffer. Me too, self, we are suffer. Nothing. We are thank God for governor. For Seyi Makinde is very, very thank God. I'm 7 months. 7 months now. So there's no food, no anything, nothing. Please, we need your help and we need your support. We are just cleaning and doing house help.
Meanwhile, some other Nigerians stranded in Malaysia and Thailand are on their way home on board a chartered Air Peace flight. 32 of the evacuees are returning from Thailand, 3 of whom were stranded at the airport in Bangkok following the lockdown as a result of the coronavirus pandemic. The departure for Nigeria was announced this morning on the Twitter handle of NIDCOM. This is the first evacuation flight from both countries, and the flight, which left Kuala Lumpur at about 7 a.m. local time, will first land at the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport, Abuja, before proceeding to the Murtala Mohammed International Airport in Lagos. All evacuees were confirmed by NIDCOM to have tested negative to COVID-19, but they are expected to proceed on a 14-day self-isolation as mandated by the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 when they arrive. The governor of Lagos State, Mr. Babajide Sanwo-Olu, is asking Nigerians to take responsibility as the nation joins the global community in the fight against COVID-19. Governor Sanwo-Olu, who was the guest speaker at the virtual edition of the Lagos Leadership Conference, says the firm realization that Lagos is the epicenter of the pandemic in Nigeria has been a driving force for his administration's response to the pandemic. According to him, as a government, we will stop at nothing to ensure that, one, we scale up our infrastructure capability. We're doing that, and we will continue to do that even post-COVID to ensure that all our secondary and primary health facilities become top-notch and available for our citizens to have access. He believes that proactive, agile and informed decision-making, as well as transparent communication, has been responsible for the successes so far recorded in the management of the COVID-19 pandemic in Lagos State. Stigmatization is one of the concerns for patients undergoing treatments for COVID-19 in the Federal Capital Territory, FCT. Now, during a tour of facilities, some of the patients, especially health workers, bear their minds on the issues and say that they want FCT residents to take necessary precautions to reduce the spread of the disease. This next report, we take you into some of the isolation centers in the Federal Capital Territory.
The Asokoro General Hospital is one of the isolation centers for COVID-19 patients in the nation's capital. It has 30-bed capacity, and some of the patients are receiving care at the facility. Before journalists are allowed into the ward, health protocols are observed. Hand washing and use of personal protective equipment, even the cameras are protected. In the ward, the patients are observing health protocols like social distancing and wearing a face mask. Most of the cases here are not severe, and some of the patients are receiving treatment. It's time to feed them, and health workers are handing them their meal, while some of the patients are unwilling for their faces to be made public. On site in our cameras, some of the patients hide their faces. The concern here is stigmatization and not their health status.
I am a COVID patient. I'm recovering. It is not a death sentence. And then there are people that, when they hear that someone is has COVID-19, they start discriminating. For goodness sakes, this is something people recover from. Yeah, a lot of people recover from it. So when you hear that you are positive, don't think that it's the end of the world. It is not.
One of the patients at this facility is the FCT Secretary of Health and Human Services, Dr. Mohammed Kawu, whose health status is not severe.
I had malaria-like symptoms some 11, 12 days ago. So I got tested, and behold, it was positive. So I had to move into treatment centers. And unfortunately, I developed a moderate to severe symptoms of pneumonia.
Another center for COVID-19 patients is the Idu Isolation Center. It has a capacity of over 500 beds. Over 360 patients have been admitted into the facility, while over 200 have been discharged from the facility. Presently, over 100 patients are on admission.
The overwhelming situation in our communities today has gone to such an extent that people are coming here on their own upon testing positive, which is a factual reality that the community transmission the lockdown was intended to stop, was not achieved. So more people are coming. The challenge is we're getting overwhelmed day in, day out. Many cases are being admitted, being treated and discharged.
The FCT has 7 isolation and treatment centers across the territory. 6 of them are public facilities, while 1 is privately managed.
The Minister of Aviation, Mr. Hadi Sirika, has been explaining why physical distancing may not be possible on board the aircraft while certifying the Malam Aminu Kano International Airport fit for flight after a simulation exercise with Max Air VM 1644. Mr. Sirika said this while leading a team from the aviation industry and the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 to the Kano Airport. In the meantime, the Imo and Port Harcourt airports also resumed flight operations today after months of closure.
The first flight embraces the sky over Owerri, and the destination is the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja. But on the ground, there's strict compliance to the NCDC COVID-19 protocols, such as the use of face masks, maintaining social distancing, washing of hands, as well as constant fumigation and disinfection of the airport. Some passengers insist the directive of arriving at the airport 3 hours before flight needs an adjustment.
I think maybe 3 hours before is a bit long because I came here at 8:30 and I was waiting for an hour before checking in. So I'm not sure that we need to get here 3 hours.
Meanwhile, staff of the airport authority are happy to be back at work and pledge to continue to ensure that the COVID-19 protocols are strictly adhered to.
Why we are saying the 3 hours is for you to come and follow the normal procedure, because before you don't wash your hands. You understand, you board your flight. So it's not actually, it must be 3 hours.
From the Imo airport in the southeast to neighboring River State, where the Port Harcourt International Airport received its first flight after months of closure. From the south-south to the Malam Aminu Kano Airport in northwestern Nigeria, this time, it's the Minister of Aviation leading a delegation which has members of the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 to oversee a simulation of flight resumption with Max Air VM 1644. The Minister of Aviation takes time to explain the seating arrangements in the aircraft as he certifies the airport ready for full domestic operations.
That sitting in an airplane, because of the nature of the airplane is hygienic enough. Once you have your mask, you are safe to remain seated on your seat. Where possible, we will keep the distance. Maiduguri is ready, we will resume our operations normally, and all the airports in Nigeria by the 15th, which they will all open, we will make sure that they are ready before we open.
The chairman of the Senate Committee on Aviation, however, identifies some gaps at the airport.
I just observed that on what I saw in Abuja at the airport, I want to suggest to the minister and the ministry by extension to look at the possibility of increasing more supply of water to the departure point of this airport.
With a commitment to bridge the identified gaps, the Presidential Task Force gives a nod to the readiness of the airport to resume operations in line with COVID-19 protocols.
When the news at 10 returns, we have more on COVID-19 plus Minister of Aviation allays fears over possible increase in airfares following resumption of flight operations. That's on Business News. So join us again. Isolation, testing and treatment are some of the very critical procedures in the global response to the COVID-19 pandemic. According to the World Health Organization, they believe that the more of these countries are able to carry out, the more likely they are to flatten the curve of COVID-19. Let's take a look at the various efforts towards improving Nigeria's testing and treatment capacity for the virus.
It's about 5 months now since the index case of COVID-19 was reported in Nigeria on February 27th this year. The outbreak of this deadly virus subjected the country's already fragile health system to further pressure, stretching its workforce to the limit. However, the outbreak has also forced the government to focus its attention on the health sector. For instance, from a mere 5 molecular laboratories in the country as at March this year, Nigeria now boasts of over 40 laboratories testing for COVID-19 across the country. This is besides other interventions from the government, including the manufacturing of critical medical equipment aimed at strengthening the country's testing and treatment capacity.
Today, the RNA Swift test kit has the capacity in an accurate manner to detect SARS-CoV-2, which is the causative agent of COVID-19. This is Nigeria's gift to Africa.
One of the most important steps in the molecular diagnostic process is something we call extraction. To do this extraction, we need something called extraction kits. And this is the kit that has now been produced by NAFDA with some of its partners. And we're excited about this. They brought it to us. We did some validation. It works similar to others. So we're now working with them to see whether they can produce that to scale to support the work that we're doing for the country.
Efforts to scale up testing also got some boost, as the West African Health Organization, WAHO, made donations of critical medical equipment in Abuja.
I'm delighted to be here with you all today.
The government says these donations, which include over 40,000 test kits and ventilators, will improve the country's testing capacity going forward.
We're generally happy with the type of kit bought. It suits exactly the equipment we have, and we're looking forward to deploying it as quickly as possible to serve our people.
The Director General of WAHO also speaks about the need to modify individuals' behavior to flatten the curve of COVID-19.
Coronavirus is going to be with us for some time. Therefore, it's really important that we get into the habit of modifying our behavior.
Nigeria, a country estimated at 200 million people, has only tested a little over 152,000 samples, even though there are over 40 molecular laboratories across the country. This is no doubt an area that both the federal and state governments must look into to flatten the curve of COVID-19.
The National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, has commenced distribution of palliatives to 64,000 households in Edo State. The package includes fertilizers for over 3,000 farmers as part of the federal government's efforts to cushion the impact of the pandemic. The Director General of the agency, retired Air Vice Marshal Mohamedou Mohamed, disclosed this at Government House in Benin City. Says the special intervention was approved by the President. Meanwhile, the Edo State Governor, Godwin Obaseki, says the state government has already identified the most vulnerable persons in the state as beneficiaries.
We all know that the outbreak of the pandemic has altered our lives and negatively impacted on the vulnerables that depend largely on others for their daily survival. Such persons are the aged, people living with disabilities, and persons of concerns that deserve support in terms of basic necessities, including food. The food items allocated to Edo State are maize, 323.29 metric tons, which is equivalent to 11 trailer loads. Gari, 156.51 metric tons, equivalent to 6 trailer loads. These are palliatives that are expected to cater for 64,613 households. Additionally, we will flag off the distribution of fertilizer to farmers affected by flood in 2018.
We have defined and we have a very, very transparent and community-involved process that helps us identify the most vulnerable in our society. And it is those people that we try and reach with these items. The distribution is usually done in association and cooperation with religious bodies, with community leaders who help us identify the people who are neediest and who have suffered the most brunt of this pandemic.
Still on the pandemic, the outbreak of COVID-19 may be crippling economies, causing shutdowns and rendering millions jobless. However, in the midst of the quagmire, some others are putting on their thinking caps, creating applications that make life easier. In this next report, our technology correspondent Victor Matthias examines key roles some of these applications played and are playing during the forced sit-at-home necessitated by the outbreak of the pandemic.
Businesses, schools and many other establishments had to be shut following the lockdown in various countries around the world as a measure to curb the spread of a virus that has left in its trail fear, illness and death. However, in a bid to get some of the closed establishments running, at least at half capacity, technology was employed, spurring the creation of applications in the fields of medicine and education amongst others. Some of these include Itoju and NovaDoc for health and continuous learning platforms for education.
Discovered that a lot of young people are just on the street playing, they're supposed to be at home, maybe accessing some continuous learning platform, and we discovered that what can we do to bridge this gap, and that's what led to this continuous learning platform. Student Online Library, an initiative to actively engage secondary students in Nigeria due to the COVID-19 pandemic, and this is the book we have for GS1 to GS3 and for senior classes. And this is the platform where they can access mock tests online, where they can test their knowledge, because we believe some of them don't have access to tutors at home. So with this, they can test their knowledge to know maybe they are progressing or they are not progressing.
When coronavirus started in Nigeria, and then there's no way for proper tracking for the government, for the masses, for them to be aware of what is going on, how they're going to make reports and the likes. That was why we built the mobile application, which later was ported to a web application. It's an app that keeps people aware of this pandemic, coronavirus precisely, and at the same time help them to report any abnormality in their community for quick action from them. So this is basically just keeping citizens informed, engaged, and aware of what is going on within them.
Business and governance were also not left out, as more video conferencing applications were created to ensure their continuance. Some Nigerians speak on how they were adjusting to this new way of life.
During the lockdown, my best social media app was Zoom, because I could connect to a lot of people at the same time, business meetings, see them, speak with them, as opposed to some other social media platforms that didn't allow me the room to use or to be with more than 4 people at a time.
I recently discovered Google Meet, courtesy COVID-19, because of the interstate travel ban. All my meetings and training take place via Google Meet.
Necessity, they say, is the mother of all inventions. As these inventions saved and are still saving the day during the pandemic, more is still expected from the global technology world to make life easier. Victor Matthias, Channels Television News.
And political leaders from the All Progressives Congress, APC, in the Southeast say they have resolved to put aside their differences and unite for the development of the party and the region. Speaking in Owerri, the Imo State capital, during a visit to the Imo State Governor, Mr. Hope Uzodimma, the group dismissed the talk of marginalization, saying the people of the Southeast have decided to throw their weight behind the federal government in order to attract more federal presence to the region.
We are glad that we did. Not only that we are well received, but the words of wisdom we got from him and other members gives us hope that APC is growing in the Southeast. So, Southeast is witnessing a new dawn. And all our members are very enthusiastic about this. We have tremendous expectation. In management, they say high expectation, high performance. High performance, high expectation.
The unity of the party is very important to us. Yes, anybody can claim the Southeast has been marginalized. Southeast is not part and parcel of what is happening out there. All those things are speculation. The truth is that in the Igbo, we are decided that we will follow the national party. We have decided that all federal government policies that is targeted at making sure that the common man on the street has a good life.
Well, let's take you to the world of business now. Here's Teniola Shibawale.
Thanks, Millicent. The federal government says the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic has not led to an increase on airfares across the country. The Minister of Aviation, Senator Hadi Sidika, who made this known today while inspecting resumption of flights from Abuja to Kano and other parts of the country, explains that even if any increase had been recorded, it will be a minimal amount which passengers can afford. He also mentioned that resumption of air flights would follow strict compliance with safety protocols earlier announced by the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19. The Nigerian Sovereign Investment Authority says it plans to increase its local funds investment in the country from 40% to 50%. The managing director of the NSIA, Mr. Uche Oji, made this known today during a webinar titled Funding Nigeria and Investment Opportunities During a Pandemic. He says that sectors such as healthcare and agriculture will receive more attention from the NSIA while it seeks to deploy numerous capital into the country's power and energy sector. Mr. Oji further explains that the NSIA is co-investing with Morocco-based fertilizer producer OCP Group to build a basic chemical platform in Nigeria. The Lagos State Internal Revenue Service says it's implementing additional palliatives to cushion the impact of COVID-19 on taxpayers' residents in the state. According to a statement released by the LIRS, the additional palliative measures to be implemented by the service include the approval of installment payment of outstanding liabilities to ease the cash flow challenges faced by taxpayers, waiver of penalty for late payment of pay-as-you-earn liabilities from March to May 2020. Others are waiver of penalties due for late filing of 2020 annual tax returns and the adoption of video conferencing as the default mode of conducting tax audit reconciliation committee meetings. And that's business news tonight. It's back to you, Millicent.
Thank you, Teniola. Still ahead on the news at 10, Nigeria's Kamaru Usman puts his welterweight title on the line as he faces American mixed martial artist Jorge Masvidal at UFC 251, plus the deadly attack on a South African church as well as global COVID-19 update. Please stay with us. Welcome back. We take you to bring you some sports news. Here's Ayotunde Balogun.
Many thanks, Millicent. In a few hours from now, Nigeria's Kamaru Usman will put his welterweight title on the line as he faces American mixed martial artist Jorge Masvidal at the UFC 251. Masvidal has come in as a late replacement for Gilbert Burns to face Usman in a fight that everyone was hoping for. The pair have previously swapped words on social media and in interviews, fueling their rivalry, and at Super Bowl weekend, they nearly came to blows during a press event and had to be kept apart by UFC officials. The Nigeria Football Federation has confirmed that it will fully enforce licensing regulations and financial controls for clubs in the Nigeria Professional Football League from next season. The Football Federation said clubs will be barred from participating in the top flight if they fail to comply with the regulations. The NFF stated it will also reveal the governing structure of the second-tier Nigeria National League to optimize its development. In England, Norwich City Football Club have been relegated from the English Premier League after losing 4-0 to West Ham United, with Michail Antonio scoring all 4 goals as the Hammers gradually pulled away from the relegation zone. Elsewhere, Troy Deeney scored twice from the penalty spot to boost Watford's survival hopes in a 2-1 win over Newcastle at Vicarage Road. Champions Liverpool FC were forced to a 1-0 draw by a determined Burnley at Anfield. In other matches, Sheffield United pulled off the biggest upset at Bramall Lane, beating Frank Lampard's Chelsea by 3-0, while Manchester City produced another scintillating performance away at Brighton and Hove Albion, hitting 5 past the home team. And that's a wrap in sports news. I'm Ayotunde Balogun.
5 people have been killed after attackers stormed a South African church, reportedly amid an argument over its leadership. South African police say they had rescued men, women and children from a hostage situation on the outskirts of Johannesburg Saturday morning. They have also arrested at least 40 people and seized dozens of weapons. Among those arrested were members of the police, defense forces and correctional services. Iran's President Hassan Rouhani says the country cannot afford to shut down its economy again in the face of rising infections. Officials say 188 people have died in the past 24 hours. Another 2,397 cases have been recorded. Here's more on this and other developments on our COVID-19 Global Update.
As Iran's coronavirus outbreak worsens, President Hassan Rouhani says economic closure is impossible. However, he has called for big gatherings such as weddings and wakes to be banned to stem a rise in infections. And over in India, coronavirus cases have surged past 800,000, with the biggest single-day spike of 27,114 cases, causing multiple states to impose lockdowns in high-risk areas. In other developments, the US has seen another 66,600 infections in 24 hours and a total of almost 135,000 deaths since the pandemic began. Among the states seeing a rise in cases are Florida, Illinois, and South Carolina. Amid all this, Walt Disney World, the most visited theme park in the world, located in Florida, has reopened. Disney is requiring all visitors over the age of 2 to wear masks and will do temperature checks of visitors as they enter the theme park. Elsewhere, as the UK government hints that face coverings could be made compulsory in shops in England, opposition MPs are calling on ministers to provide strong and clear guidance. And finally, a British pilot known as Patient 91, who was Vietnam's most critical COVID-19 patient, has been discharged from hospital after being declared virus-free.
And finally tonight, legendary American evangelist Dr. Morris Cerullo has died. He was aged 88. The preacher passed away on Saturday in San Diego, California in the United States. Born on October the 2nd, 1931, Cerullo was the founder of the television program Victory Today, dedicated to Christian teachings and inspiration across different parts of the world. The late preacher was also an author of over 80 books. The cause of his death has not been announced by his family. Simply irreplaceable. Our thoughts and prayers are with his family. And the main news again. 2-story building today collapsed in Lagos Island, killing 3 people and 9 others rescued. This came as another structure partially caved in the Kotun area of the city. Also today, the Nigerian Army honored outstanding officers and soldiers during a ceremony in Katsina State to mark 157 years of its existence as the Chief of Army Staff restated commitments to containing threats to the nation's security. Plus, you heard 5 people were killed today after attackers stormed a church in South Africa as police rescued men, women and children from what they describe as a hostage situation. That's news at 10 tonight. Many thanks for watching. I'm Millicent Nwaka. Have a good night and stay safe.